Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Robin Craig, and you're watching Robin Craig Live here on the Mingle Media Television Network, where I'm broadcasting from Houston, Texas, my hometown. I am so excited. We've been talking in the chat room for the last 30 minutes. So if you're new to the show, know that I always log on half an hour early, and we stay in the chat room for sometimes up to an hour after the show to just catch up. And it's so beautiful because we're talking to people from all across America. It's a wonderful thing. And I'm glad that you could be here tonight because I have a wonderful guest, Michelle Roger, who has written a book about her sister-in-law who suffered with breast cancer and ultimately lost her life. And we're going to be talking to her in just a little bit. But first, it's time for the Critter Update. I have to say, it's been relatively quiet around here, except for the birds. We got a little bit of rain, it totally stopped, and I've had my sprinkler going out there, and I love looking out the window because all of a sudden one bird comes, two birds come, and then there are like 10 of them, and they're splashing. They face the water hose, it comes across this way, and then they hop around backwards so that they're facing it when it comes back the other way. And I got some cute pictures, so when I have time, I'm going to copy those so that you guys can see them because I'm like a natural bird habitat around here. And I also want to comment about Stanley Bronstein because he's out there in Scottsdale, Arizona. And he was telling us that he had a scorpion that he saw in his house, and then like they do, they come up missing, and he couldn't find it, and I think he may have found like a dead skeleton. Stanley, what's going on out there? So as we were just saying in the chat room, it's making the roaches here in Texas seem a whole lot better. I think I'll take the roaches, as much as I hate them, over the scorpions. Now, if you're here in Houston, make sure that you go and see Dr. Sean Jackson at Health Source Chiropractic and Rehab. He's in Northwest Houston, right at the corner of Jones Road and 290, and he is the best at spinal manipulation, and he also offers massage therapy, cupping. If you've never done cupping, it's really great. I tried it and it really did wonders for me. And they do shoe insoles, they have a weight loss program, they do eye sculpt for cellulite removal, they do drug testing, blood testing. It's amazing. So if you're anywhere in the area, go see Dr. Sean Jackson, and it's spelled Shawn. Okay, now have you guys got something to nibble on? You know I've got my Benitos going. And tonight, I'm going to nibble on the plain black bean. Can you see that? Bean Etos. And these are great because they're gluten-free, corn-free, they have high fiber, they have 4 grams of protein, and they are certified to be low glycemic. So if you have issues with your blood sugar, this is the thing to get. And as we were talking in the chat room, Shannon Bell won a case of Benitos, and she's got 2 cute little kids, and she said that her and the kids loved the Benitos. Oh, hang on, I just moved my camera. There we go. So I'm going to eat these tonight. They're so good. Check them out. They're big and they're crunchy, and the plain ones are as close to a potato chip as you're ever going to get. Mmm. 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 These are so good. And then we got to wash it down with Crystal Light. Tonight I'm drinking the pink lemonade, and it's wonderful because it's only 5 calories, no fat, no sugar, no carbohydrates, and it's a happy pink color. So cheers to you. This is so good. I hope that you're all settled in because I'm going to call Stanley, who happens to be in the chat room. You guys remember last week I announced that Stanley and I are teaming up to do a retreat. It's Sunday through Thursday, November the 13th through the 17th at Miraval Resort and Spa, which is located in Tucson, Arizona. And all I have to say is it's Oprah's favorite. Now you know it's the best if it's Oprah Winfrey's favorite. So I want to invite all of you to go. You can go to my website, which everybody knows by heart, robincraigdirect.com. There's a banner across the top. You just click on that. It will take you over to Stanley's site with all of the information. So I hope you guys can afford to take a little break and pamper yourself. You know, they got the best massages and manicures and pedicures and facials and body scrubs and acupuncture and Ayurvedic treatments. I mean, they have everything coupled with gourmet meals. And then you get to walk in the desert with Stanley and me. We have morning and afternoon sessions. I am so looking forward to it. Let's just get Stanley on the phone. I know you're in the chat room, Stanley. Here's a surprise phone call. Let's just see if we can get you on. Hope you got your cell phone. Okay. Don't you like to make surprise calls? Hey, Stanley, how are you?
Doing just fine, Robin.
Well, you know you're on Robin Craig Live, right?
That's correct. I was watching you, and I even remembered to turn off my volume so I don't get any feedback.
Wow, you're quick on the draw. Well, I want to tell everybody, first of all, Stanley's going to be on the show next week. He is a 7-time author, and I got a couple of his books. One of them is The Path of the Warrior Walker. Find Your Path by Walking It. Stanley, is this you over here? Is that you?
And that is me, probably 30 or 40 pounds ago. I'm a little lighter than that now.
Okay, tell everybody how much weight you've lost.
Since February 2009, I've lost 127 pounds.
Isn't that just like the best? He has lost 127 pounds. I can't even keep up. I've been saying 125. Now it's 127. But he walked, and we'll talk more about it next week, but he walked for 5 hours a day in all 50 states. Can you imagine that? And then he wrote this great book, 50 Key Questions Only We the People Can Answer. So we're going to give away some books, and we're going to talk more about it. But Stanley, tell everybody about Miraval.
Miraval, for people who've not been to Tucson, Arizona, it's located a little bit south of the Phoenix area. And in November, when the retreat is going to be, that's when the gorgeous weather really starts hitting here in Arizona. It'll be, reasonably warm days, cool nights. Everything should be wonderful. You're in a beautiful mountain setting. And it's very much a retreat location. We're off on our own. You're away from the city. You're away from civilization. And it's a beautiful opportunity for everybody to step off the face of the earth and slow down and think about their lives and get them together.
Yes, because we have so much coming at us. Our brains get so cluttered, and it seems that we just deal with stuff as it comes toward us. But we really need to find that wonderful, calm, peaceful place that allows us to create the life that we really want. And that's what we're going to be doing at Miraval in November.
Absolutely, Robin. When you say people need to create that one place where they can be by themselves, we all have it. It's called our mind.
Yes.
We just have to slow down enough to listen to our own mind and talk to ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's not easy to do because we all have busy lives. I don't care who we are and where we live. We all just have busy lives. It's just the way the world is now. So to have an opportunity to break free from all of that and to go to Arizona, where we all know the best weather is. You remember that song in the old days, I send my sinuses to Arizona? Well, I'm taking my sinuses.
That's before we planted all these palm trees and everything else, Robin.
I know it, and I loved looking at the pictures of Miraval. I've never been there, but I loved looking at the mountains and the palm trees, and I'm already dreaming about the gourmet meals that they're going to be serving, and it'll just be a really inspirational 5-day, 4-night event. So Stanley, I'm looking forward to having you on the show next week, and we're going to give away some of your books, and we'll talk more about the event, and we'll talk about your adventure where you walked 5 hours a day in all 50 states. That's remarkable. It really is.
Thank you, Robin. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, hang out with us in the chat room, and we'll be talking to you a little later.
Will do.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Wasn't that fun? See, you never know. If I have your phone number, you never know when I'm going to call you during the show. I love doing these surprise attacks, and Stanley, how quick is he on the draw? He knew to turn down his computer sound, so that was excellent. Excellent, excellent. So good. All righty. Now, Last week, I had Dr. Gloria Horsley on the show, and I gave away her book, Open to Hope Inspirational Stories of Healing After Loss, written by Dr. Gloria Horsley and her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and they're contributing writers. So here's the book, and the winner of the book is Brenda Durley in Pensacola, Florida. Congratulations, Brenda. She sent me an email. She was the 20th email, and she was not in the chat room. You do not have to be in the chat room to win on Rob and Craig Live, but I'll tell you one thing, it's a lot more fun if you are. A lot more fun if you are. Okay, now tonight, I'm going to be giving away a book. It's called Carol's Story, A Scottish Gem. Isn't she pretty? Just a beautiful, beautiful girl. And we're going to get Michelle Rogers on the phone. This is based on an incredible true story, and it is an incredible book. It's a nice, big, thick 328 pages. So let's see if we can get, hang on one second for me. Let's see if we can get Michelle on the phone to talk about her amazing book. I'm so glad so many of you are here in the chat room. We're having so much fun. Hello, Michelle. You're on Robin Craig Live. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you, Robin?
Good. I'm doing great. Have you been watching the beginning of the show? Are you online with us?
Yes, I was.
Excellent, excellent. I was talking to you earlier today, and I am so impressed with your book and with your writing. And this is your beautiful sister-in-law who lost her life to breast cancer. And I might as well show your beautiful looks. You're the sister-in-law, but it just looks like good looks run in your family.
Thank you.
So I was really touched because you talked about how Carol had such a zest for life. And I really felt that you captured that. I felt like I knew her, and it just seemed like she gave life everything she had. She was really a remarkable woman.
I have to tell you, Robin, by you saying that, it makes my day because my whole intent when I was writing the book was to have people know her and hope that they would have been able to meet her and to just live vicariously through her life.
Yes, and I mean, that girl, she was on the go. She had so much energy and so much talent. It's like she just tackled everything straight on, and that's such an inspiration. And
It certainly is. I think, the book, albeit it ends with her passing, I really wanted the focus to be about her triumphs, how she held on to her hope, and how she got through her challenges and her tribulations. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't want her to be defined by the end of what happens at the end of her life.
yes, and I appreciate you saying that because nobody wants to be defined by an illness. Nobody wants to say, Carol, the person who died of breast cancer, she was so much more than that. That's what caused her death. But she had a wonderful life, and it started a little bit rough. I love that your book has a purpose, which is to support alternative cancer treatment. But what I found so interesting about it is how you took us from the beginning of her life and you led us all the way through, and you did it in such a colorful way that I just wanted to cry at the end. Like I felt like I was part of it, and that takes a lot of talent, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I felt when I was writing it, um, the whole experience, the only way I could explain it is changed me in such a profound way that when I was writing it, I thought to myself, how can I not only allow her memory to still remain alive, because it was bad enough that she passed, but there was no way I was going to allow her spirit and her zest for life to leave us as well. And so between that and figuring out how to close the hole inside of me because of the massive loss, it truly became this huge mission so that other families wouldn't have to go through what my family and friends went through. So that's how I got to the point of saying, right, when I get to the point where I could get this published, portions of the proceeds are going to go to the Canzia's Cancer Research Foundation, and that was the foundation that actually gave her hope.
Well, to give people a little bit of background, Carol was born in Scotland,
Correct?
and then she moved when she was very young with her family to England. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And her dad left, and her mom was left as a single parent to 5 children.
That's correct. They moved back up to Scotland, and the thought was, we'll move into this kind of starter home first, and then when they moved back up to Scotland is when the dad left them. So the life that she knew at one point became very, very changed overnight, and they didn't have a lot of money on top of it all. So it made for a very difficult situation, and even through that, I think her personality came through because as frustrated and angry as her mom would get, she wouldn't allow her mother to crush her spirit. And I think from what she experienced as a child, she knew what she didn't want. So she knew she didn't want to have a broken family. She wanted, as any little girl growing up, Scotland, the States, wherever, you kind of think about getting married, having kids,
Yes.
and just being happily ever after in your castle.
Yes. And it seemed like for her that she seemed like she had a really good head on her shoulders, even as a little child. And even though she experienced a lot of adversity, she really wanted to plan her life well and to have everything as she wanted it. And what she did not want was to be a single mom with children and no husband. And ironically, she goes to get a job. She's 17 years old, and she meets a man who winds up hiring her. And it's shocking to think that they dated for almost 10 full years. And then he has an affair and leaves her 2 kids later.
That's right. That's right. She actually really never wanted to get married with the fear of, let's put it this way, she wanted to get married, but her fear was overtaking her at some stage of the game because she just didn't want to end up in the same situation as her mom. And the
Yes.
irony of it all is that she did. But what she did with her situation was much different than what her mom did with it. And still she didn't give up hope. And that first 6 months right after her husband left the family house is when she was first diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yes. And it's interesting because we've got some widows in the chat room right now, and they're single parents. And they didn't want that either, but of course their spouses died. So it's hard any way you get there. But when you experience what Carol did and you try so hard to plan your life, she didn't want to marry. She dates this guy for almost 10 years, and then he pushes for the marriage. And she felt happy and, felt great. And he had all the excuses when he wasn't coming home. But in the end, when things blew up, it seemed like she handled it well. She didn't feel like I have to take something off of him because I'm helpless. It seemed like she was very strong.
Very strong. You hit it right on the head, Robin. Throughout her life, that was a characteristic of hers that was true up until the end. She never let adversity get her down. I mean, she would be well with me, but it wouldn't last longer than a day or two, and then she would get herself back up and get on with it. So even after she had her right breast removed, that was an interesting story as well because she felt it in the shower and then went to the doctor right away, and the doctor said, "Oh my God, I can't even believe you found this." Now, mind you, this was in Scotland, and that all happened. And 3 months later, she felt like it was getting bigger, went back to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "No, we're going to need to go in and perhaps need to remove the breast."
Well, and what's so crazy, isn't it true that her husband left and she was diagnosed with breast cancer in the same year?
For 6 months.
Oh, that's
6 months.
That's a tremendous amount for anyone to handle. But once again, she hit it straight on. And this is what's so great about your book. You're talking about the cancer and you're supporting alternative cancer treatment, but you're also sharing a very inspirational story that all of us can relate to from a standpoint of just adversity. Adversity comes in a lot of forms, and we don't know when it's coming, we don't know how it's coming, but just by reading her book, it was encouraging to think that no matter what comes, I know I'm going to be saying, Carol would have done this, Carol would have done that, and I think it really helps us all to hit things straight on. So after she found this lump, she really wasn't that worried about it, and the doctor wasn't that worried about it. When he finally says that you have cancer, what I noted in the book is that it was referred to initially as the big C. Like nobody wants to say the word cancer. It's a very negative word. It doesn't always have a good positive outcome, and we don't want to say it. But one thing that you stressed in the book is that it's important to say the word and to be able to communicate about it.
That's right.
And at the time she was diagnosed, you were already married to her brother. Is that correct?
That was right. We were living in England, and she was up in Scotland, and we knew that she was diagnosed. We knew that she found something, and we only knew the part up to when the doctor said, "Don't worry about it." And I was pregnant with our first son at the time, and the next call we got was her saying to her brother, "I had breast cancer, and my breast was removed." And I was so taken back by it because, what? Well, when did all that happen? And how did you not give us a call? And it was almost like this very stoic way to approach it, that this is what happened, it's gone, I'm fine, let's move on.
Yes.
And
And as I'm looking in the chat room, Nyla's husband died of pancreatic cancer, and she's just saying, Julia was saying that people whisper the word cancer.
oh
And
yeah,
and Nyla said she called it the big ugly. And at the end of the day, it is cancer, and people are suffering from it around the world, all ages. The cancer is located all over the entire body, and it's important for us to continue supporting these efforts with research to find a cure, because it's quite clear it's not going away on its own. So I appreciate what you're doing. Now here we are, we're talking about Carol, and she goes into surgery, and the doctor says, we may, if the tissue has spread, have to remove your breast. So she had to sign a consent form, never dreaming that that would happen. But I thought it was interesting how he described the breast as being like an egg. The breast tissue is like an egg, and the egg yolk is the tumor. And if the yolk mixes in with the white part, then you've got to remove all of that. So your imagery was very graphic, but in a nice way, not in a gory kind of way, but it just gave a lot of imagery, which I really appreciated. So she goes into the surgery, she's optimistic, and she comes out, and the worst has happened. Her breast has been removed. How did she describe feeling afterwards?
she was in such shock because she really couldn't tell because she was all bandaged up, and she was thinking that the worst was happening, and then when it was confirmed that it happened, she just was. I mean, the disbelief. It went from it being nothing to something in that short period of time is a big what she couldn't get her head around. But then quickly, after she was able to digest it, if you will, she needed to get out of the hospital. This is what her plan was. I need to get out of here because I need to be with my children. And so back then in Scotland, they didn't give radiation and chemo. They gave hormone shots. So she went and left the hospital as soon as she was able to the point where she said to the doctor, "If you don't sign me out, I'm gonna walk out myself." So what she got out of that experience was, oddly enough, she always wanted bigger breasts. So she said, "Heck, if I have to go through this, I'm gonna get myself a boob job." So she was happily then got herself I think a 34C, if I'm correct off the top of my head, on being able to somehow, some way, pull something
I love that about her because it seemed like she did not lose her sense of humor. And I think a sense of humor can carry us very far. As a matter of fact, a lot of us attended Camp Widow in San Diego this past August, just, a few weeks back. And when I conducted my workshop, one of the widows said, Robin, I never expected to come in here and hear a bunch of grieving widows laughing. And I said, honey, we just lost our spouses. We did not lose our sense of humor.
That's right.
And it seemed like that's how Carol was with this, that she turned a negative into a positive by saying, I've always wished I had bigger breasts. Now I'm going to be able to get them.
That's right.
And I can only imagine that there's something about breast. It's just another body part, but there's something about breast that make women feel attractive or appealing to the opposite sex. And so it was obvious that Carol did not feel attractive until she found a new relationship. I was so happy for her. I was so happy you wrote about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't...
She met a gentleman through a mutual friend, and the best gift that this gentleman was able to give her was her confidence, her desirability back, her ability to know that she was desirable. Because Carol, you can see from the front cover of the book, she was gorgeous. I mean, she had such a very pretty way about her, and her face was very pretty. So she had been getting little by little beaten down by her husband, and not even knowing that it was happening until such times that someone actually took note of her. You mentioned that breasts are something that females, find. How did you just say? Basically, that it is something that makes you feel prettier.
Yeah, it makes you feel attractive to the opposite sex, and it's some sort of a womanly feeling. It's just the way that we feel about our breasts.
Absolutely. And another thing about women is our hair.
Yes.
Isn't it interesting, this disease,
Yes.
right? It attacks our hair and our breasts.
I mean, it's just like no matter where the cancer is, if you have to have all of these treatments, odds are you will lose your hair, and that's something that you can't hide.
Yeah.
But the fact is, she found a relationship, and she realized that she was attractive. I loved it. You clearly must have had a lot of great conversations with her, because you just capitalized on everything from the man saying that he just enjoyed looking at her. And I can't think of a nicer compliment for a man to give a woman after she's had a mastectomy other than, I just like looking at you.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the first gentleman that kind of got her back on her track, his name was Charlie, and like I said, he basically did the best thing he could for her in giving her that confidence. Oddly enough, when that relationship ended, it really didn't fuss her too much, because she got out of that what she needed, and I think he got out of it what he needed, and they were able to kind of part their ways without necessarily feeling hurt.
Yes, I was touched by the fact that he just point blank said, I've raised my 2 kids. I really don't want to raise any more children. And she was strong and brave enough after everything she had been through. It never seemed that she felt desperate, that she always felt that she was going to stand her ground. And she firmly said, we are a package deal. And that's what every single mom has to be able to say to any man.
Absolutely. And the irony of that little bit of the story is that when they broke up, he went back to his prior girlfriend who got pregnant.
Yes.
So he then became a father anyway.
I know it. That was like so amazing. You go, what are the odds of that? You leave a woman, you date another woman, you tell her that you really like her, but you can't be with her because you just don't want to have to raise kids anymore. You get back with the old girlfriend, she's pregnant. I mean, who would have thought? But what goes around comes around. And the sad part is you wonder how long he stayed with her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know the details on that one, but I think the good thing about that whole story is that she left that relationship knowing exactly what she wanted, and it was true love and someone that loved her your children.
Absolutely. And for the viewers who have just tuned in, you're watching Robin Craig Live, and I am talking to the author of Carol's Story, A Scottish Gem. Here's the book. We're going to give away a copy of the book tonight, and Michelle Roger is on the phone. You're up in New Jersey, is that correct?
That's correct, Central New Jersey.
Okay, and Carol was her sister-in-law, so she's sharing her story of her life, which includes a bout with breast cancer. So after she's done her reconstructive surgery, she's on a cruise, she feels attractive, this man is attracted to her again, she's feeling happy, and then he says, I can't be with you because you're kids, and she's like, whatever, she was still able to move on. And you know what I thought was so great? She had this group of friends, and she got turned on to rock climbing of all things. How crazy is that? I'm thinking, I see rock climbing, and I just look at that and think, how do you hang on to a little centimeter of an edge on a rock and continue climbing as you look down going, oh, I mean, how do you do that? But yet she tackled that straight on and fell in love with it. She had to be in good physical shape even after the breast cancer and the reconstructive surgery.
That's right. She actually got introduced to that sport by one of her neighbors, and her neighbor realized that, you know what, Carol, you are working full time, you're going to school part time, you have children, and all work and no play could make for a very dull existence. How would you like to go climbing?
And it's like climbing is one thing. Even if you climb, I mean, I'm voting for anybody that climbs those little artificial walls that you see at different places. That's amazing to me that someone can do that. But she was going to tackle Matterhorn, which, I was reading about that. I had heard of it before, but you were saying since the first ascent in 1965, over 500 climbers have lost their life, but even that didn't deter her or scare her away.
No, she was actually jazzed by the thought of climbing. And the funny part about that is after one of the first Monroes that she climbed, so in Scotland, mountains are called Monroes. So she climbs up this Monroe and gets back down. And if you've ever climbed before, your thighs are burning like crazy when you're coming down, more so than anything. So she was in pain just getting it down from the mountain. And her friend says, how would you like to train to climb the Matterhorn? So I was like, what, are you kidding me? So a year later, she trained for a whole year and then attempted to climb the Matterhorn.
What do you think she got out of that particular sport?
I think when you are up on top of a mountain, there's a feeling of freedom, and there's this feeling that you're on top of the world that I only could explain it because I ski, and when I'm on top of the mountain, when I'm skiing, it's just this awesome feeling of, wow, I've got it all. I'm on top of this mountain. You know that song, I'm on top of the world looking down on creation? Well, that's kind of how you feel. It's a great feeling. So I think that became her love, and ironically enough, her second husband she met through a friend from the climbing club.
And that's what was so beautiful about her. She tells the guy that says, I really don't want anything to do with any children. She lets him just take a hike, and she tells herself, I know there's a man out there who will love me and my children, and that was her goal, and she found it. So to me, that's another point that's very interesting to a lot of the widows who are in the chat room tonight who are single moms, that you got to stand your ground and know that you may not find the guy, the first one that comes through, or the second or the third, but if you stand your ground and you say, my kids and I are a package deal, I'm not going to settle for less, that there will be somebody out there eventually who will love you and your children.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the other thing that she did is she did things that she enjoyed doing, and in doing so is where she met her second husband. And he happened to be an American. They went on a blind date in a palace in Linlithgow, Scotland. And he happened to live, and still does live, 45 minutes away from my family. family out on Long Island in New York. So she, they must have both been on the same plane because they both spoke hypothetically about marriage on their first blind date. Like, who talks about marriage on a blind date?
I'm telling you, they must have had some kind of vibe going to even mention that word, because most people are like, you don't want to say anything. You're not even really thinking about a second date, much less marriage.
Right. And for her to say to him, hypothetically speaking, if we were to get married, where would we live? In New York or out here in Scotland? And he very comfortably said, hypothetically speaking, we would have to live in New York because he was a detective in the police force and he needed to finish up to get his pension.
Oh, okay. So here she goes again. She's taking on yet another challenge by moving from, where was she, England at this point?
She was up in Scotland.
Okay, so she's in Scotland at this point, and then to move with her children and to come over to New York and to have to deal with that whole visa thing, that was like a big challenge, but yet she did it.
She absolutely did, because and not to say that her family wasn't saying, what's the rush? Because when I tell you they went on their first blind date in May, and they were engaged, and they were engaged by December of that year, and then got married February 14th that following year.
That's like so beautiful. I love that they got married on Valentine's Day. That's such a great day to get married.
So, actually, the cover of the book is what she wore.
I'm sorry?
The cover of the book is what she wore on her wedding. So
oh my goodness. Here's the book, everybody. There she is. Isn't she just gorgeous? I love that you put the pictures in the book as well. That also told a really wonderful story. And her husband, Sean, was just very handsome. It was just amazing to see everything that you had in this book. And it seemed like such a wonderful, happy ending to her story, to meet a man, to relocate her family. They're as happy as they can be. And then another lump. I just, it was crushing. And I know that the book was about breast cancer, and I'm like, please don't let that happen. And of course, here she went again. And at this point, she was diagnosed as stage 4.
That's correct, right? She had gone back to Scotland that December, and the doctors in Scotland had given her the all clear. So everyone was celebrating that Christmas.
Yes.
And then that February is when she found the lump in her chest.
And to hear that the tumor had metastasized, and now she was going to have the dreaded chemo and radiation. I know the hormone shots that she took in her abdomen must have been horrible, but to think that now, after all of that, she's now got chemo and radiation. How old were her 2 children at that point?
They were, let's see, they had to have been 9 and 12.
So they're getting bigger, but they're still not really big enough to totally be on their own.
No, definitely not. But even during that time, that didn't stop her. She still went skiing with us every year in Canada up until the year that she passed. She didn't let anything stop her, and she was not going to be the person that says, woe is me.
Yes. And you know what was so great? That it seemed like she impressed her doctors with her participation. She would come into her appointments prepared. She would ask all the right questions, and she participated in her treatment. How important do you think that is, Michelle?
Oh, absolutely critical, because when you become part of it, you feel like you're in more control.
Yes.
What this disease does do is that you feel like you're out of control.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And you know, the other thing that I think about too is, as great as doctors are and as much as we need them, they don't know everything. A friend of mine pointed out at one point, that's why they call it practicing medicine.
Absolutely.
Because they give you stuff hoping it's going to do what they think it will, but they don't ever know. And if it doesn't, then they take that medicine away and they give you another. So there's a lot of I guess, trial and error, for lack of a better phrase, that comes with the diagnosis and then the subsequent treatment. And for her to take the lead and to do the research she did, I think that was so beautiful. Once again, it showed strength. It showed that she was not shying away from it and that she was never going to give up, which I think is so important in any battle, whether it's a medical condition or otherwise, is just to never give up, and to stand your ground.
Absolutely. What she was constantly looking for are things that to give her hope. Whether it was spiritual hope, whether it was something through what she ate, whether it was through the Kansas Cancer Research Foundation, because what their research is doing is using radio waves to actually target just the bad cells. And what she kept on saying is, all I have to do is hold on, and maybe I could be, go on Oprah as the spokesperson, as the person that they tested it on, and it worked on me. So I think her real secret is that, regardless of what was thrown to her, even when Sloan Kettering said to her, we can't help you anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, she was down, but then, like, a couple of days later, she's like, right, well, I got to find something else.
Yes, yes, because that's got to be devastating when you have got a team of doctors at a well-known medical facility, as she was, and to have them say there's nothing else we can do. That's like the worst.
Right.
And at the
Right.
same time, Carol said, no, I'm continuing to look. And then she hears about this John, how do you pronounce his name?
The John Canzius Cancer Research Foundation.
Yes, she finds that, and to hear about this treatment with radio waves that's non-invasive, and it's supposed to attack the cancer cells without damaging the good cells around it. She had to be thrilled.
Oh, she was so excited. She had sent me over an email with an article in it. She called me up and said, "Did you read the article yet? I just sent over to you." And I had it, so she told me all about it. And John Canzius, who himself, he was actually a radio producer, and he owned his own radio station in Erie, Pennsylvania. And long story short, he retired and moved down to Florida. And when he moved down to Florida, he was diagnosed with cancer. He himself, not a doctor by any stretch of the means, went into his wife's kitchen, pulled out pots and pans, used a hot dog to actually test his theory on how you might be able to use a radio wave to target a bad cell. Now that has gone, it's went from there to where it is now with Dr. Stephen Curley being the lead research scientist actually in Houston at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. And he has been keeping everyone informed and said in his last 20 years of cancer research, this is the most promising. So what we're trying to do is help research with portions of the book, help support the ongoing research that needs to be done. Because clearly, in my mind, chemo and radiation, that's what we've had for years and years and years. They've definitely improved it over the years, but it kills good cells and bad cells.
Yes, I know it. That's what sounded so great about this, is that the good cells remain intact. And I'm putting up your website right now. I want everybody to know how to find you. And my computer's jumping, but I'm determined to get it up there. Okay, hang on here. Okay, it's www.alternativecancertreatmentproject.com. Okay, I'm putting that up on the screen right now. And for people who would like to donate or to help make a difference, you can go to this website, www.alternativecancertreatmentproject.com, and you can also go to the site to purchase Carol's book, and it's a really heartwarming, touching, and inspiring book. The cost is what, $18? We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
And I want to mention that, I don't want to get off the topic, but I want to mention that because you were saying that when you did the book, it took you a year to write it and then another year to edit it and self-publish. and you kept trying to figure out how much, and you had this figure of $18 in your head, and people were telling you, no, $18 is not a good price for a book, and they kept trying to change it, but your heart and your instincts just kept saying 18. Tell everybody what you found out later when you stuck to your guns, what 18 means in Hebrew.
Sure. One of my friends at work had sent the book down to one of her friends in Florida, and the friend in Florida said, I want to pay for it. Tell me how much it is. And she said $18. And the lady said to her, do you know what 18 means in Hebrew? And my friend said, no, what? And she said, life. And I
That's
thought, wow, how amazing is that?
and so interesting because it was just your intuition telling you that figure. You could have named your book, any price. But to feel strongly about that and to find out that 18 in Hebrew means life, that's really beautiful. And one thing that I talk about so much is following your instincts and following your inner voice. At those moments where you don't get it, you really don't understand it, you don't know why, but you've just got a real compelling feeling. And I think you and I both agree that, our message tonight for all the viewers is to follow those instincts and don't let people talk you out of it, and don't try to talk yourself out of it. Go with your instincts, because in the end, there's usually something really beautiful that comes from that.
That's right. I mean, out of something so um, horrific, if you will, for our family, I can't help but think that I'm going to make a huge difference.
Yes.
And I know that somehow, some shape or form, I'm making that huge difference in Carol's name. And one day, the ultimate happy ending will be when I sit across the table from someone who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and was able to use this device that they're creating now, and he or she can say that there's not a stitch of cancer in their body.
Wow. It's totally amazing. I'm glancing over at the chat room, and it's amazing how many people have suffered with family cancer deaths. Nyla lost her husband. Mac lost his wife. It's going by so quickly, I can't even read it fast enough. Someone lost their father. And I was looking at your statistics. It was something like 560,000 families in 2009 lost a family member to cancer. That's
Yeah,
horrible.
that's only in the United States. That's only in the United States. You have to say, I really sincerely do not know anyone who has not been somehow touched by it, whether it's a friend, a family member, a friend of a friend. It's just something that I keep on saying, we have to do something about it. We just have to, because there's no way that we can continue to go on the way we are, because every week I hear some story about it.
Yes. Yes, I shared with you. I lost two aunts to lung cancer, and I had an uncle who died of Hodgkin's disease, which is a form of cancer, and it's just lethal, and it's going to strike every family at some time or another. So the important thing is to support this alternative research. And I know that we were talking about the Kansas Cancer Research Foundation, and that it is a nonprofit supporting ongoing research and clinical trials for non-invasive radio wave cancer treatment. And it says there's no side effects. It's like, how can this be? No side effects?
Because they actually target just the bad cells. So what they're doing now is they have schematics for a human-sized device, and all indications lead that they believe that they'll be able to test this larger device by the end of the year. And once they have that in operation, the research team will need to demonstrate at least 2 years of successful clinical trials to be able to go to the FDA for approval for the first phase of human trial. And they're looking within 3 years of that happening.
Boy, what a blessing that would be, huh?
You're not kidding.
Well, and when you talk about what can people do to help, you talked about writing the local government, your governor, your senators, the members of Congress, to support alternative treatment for cancer, because I know there are organizations now that are really lobbying in Washington to get more funding for cancer research. But I think it's important to explore all of the different possibilities, including the alternative cancer treatment. So, did you say that you have a letter in your book that people can download and send off?
That's right. I actually put a draft letter together on our website so that people would just use it as a template
Okay.
and add their own story to it because everyone has their story.
Yeah.
So I told them my story about my sister-in-law and sent it out to the folks here in New Jersey, and I actually got a response back from one of them saying thank you for your sharing your story with us, and we will make sure that we will take that into consideration. I mean, it was a fact that I got a response. I was like, ooh, so that was good. So I think any anything that we could do to raise awareness of how we need to have a different outcome of when people are diagnosed with cancer, they just can't be It has to be more like, okay, well look at people that had AIDS. All of a sudden AIDS is not this horrific disease anymore, and it's treatable. People are not
Absolutely. You're so right about that. Everyone used to be terrified of AIDS, and it's not like anybody wants to contract it, but if you do get it, you're fully aware that there is treatment for it.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think that's it in a nutshell. If we could just find something that, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, Dr. Stephen Curley, the head research scientist at the hospital, he is determined not to call it a cure what he's doing because he doesn't want people to get their hopes up to that point. He wants it to be viewed as an alternative. And I think that's important because I think calling it a cure probably would cause major corporations to get very involved in seeing if that's something that would be devastating for them financially.
Yes, and if you've just tuned in, I am talking to Michelle Roger. Her last name is spelled Rodger, and they were just asking me, was there any spacing in your website? And it's all together, www.alternativecancertreatmentproject.com. You can go there to find out more information about alternative cancer treatment, and you can also go there to buy this fabulous book. Now, somebody is going to win it tonight, and I'm going to have you do the same thing that I did last week, which is go to my website, which is www. I hate saying that. A friend of mine always tells me to say it, but we already know it's www for the World Wide Web, but it's Robin with an I, Craig, like a boy's first name, direct.com. Go to robincraigdirect.com, and I'm going to do the same thing as I did last week. The 20th caller is going to win this fabulous informational book, and it's $18. If you don't win it, please buy it because I'm telling you, it's a great book. It's a wonderful journey. I couldn't put it down once I started reading it, and that's not like me because my phone's ringing and the cat's meowing and there's just always something going on, but I just stayed right with it when I started reading it because it was amazing. And one thing that we talked about when we talk about cancer, like, why are we not putting more effort into a cure? Because as far back as 1973, Richard Nixon was the one who said, let's declare war on cancer. And look how many years have passed.
That's right. I mean, if that were the case in any other situation, the American people would be appalled, right? And I don't understand what needs to happen before we really rally behind our friends and families who have passed and say, no, we're not going to take this anymore. We have to find something else. Something else has to be found. Maybe, it's the radio waves, maybe it's something else. But all I know is it has to be different than the chemo and the radiation because that clearly is not the answer.
Yes. Well, she handled herself beautifully up until the bitter end, and finally the breast cancer got the best of her. She left a precious daughter and son behind, and Michelle, you were telling me that the children now live with their biological father, and Carol's daughter is 16 and her son is what, 14?
Her daughter just turned 17 in August, and her son is 14. And what happened there is that they had gone over with their stepfather for a memorial service in honor of Carol in August. So she passed in June, and they went over in August, at which time the biological father said they're not going back to the States. So when the stepfather, because he had the children for 2 weeks when they were over there, and so the stepfather met with them and just felt out if that's what the children actually wanted, and felt that that's what they wanted. So we didn't get to see them for 2 years, so they came over last summer, which was awesome. We got to spend some quality time with them, and they're doing as good as my nephew, as my niece says, I'm doing as good as I'm going to be doing without my mom being here.
That's so great. I'm so glad to hear that they're doing well, and Carol has left quite a legacy thanks to you for getting it in print. And the 20th person to email me on my website, robincraigdirect.com, is going to get a copy of this great book. I see Sherry is in the chat room. She says she's going to buy it. And also, Julia wants to know, Michelle, how long was Carol's battle with cancer?
It was 9 years.
9 years total. That's quite a battle, isn't it?
Yes.
Wow.
It was 9 years total.
And I hear people, I've been watching some of the dialogue where people are saying the same thing. You have the surgery, you seem to be doing well, and then all of a sudden something happens. I saw Nyla saying that the cancer cells just mutate.
That's correct. They go to different areas of your body. Again, I think it's important to also know that their body deals with it differently. So my other sister-in-law's sister just was diagnosed this past weekend, and I think my message to people out there is like, everyone's body is different. So whereas Carol's body's reacted to a particular medicine adversely, and that's why she ended up in ICU for the last 9 weeks of her life. That might not have happened to someone else because the other hospital had given her an 80% chance. So after she left Sloan, she went to the Cancer Center Treatment of America in Philly, and they actually gave her an 80% chance.
Well,
awesome.
It's clearly, and I've experienced this with my own family, it's clearly a roller coaster ride. And you get good news and bad news and good news and bad news, and it's just something that we've got to really work towards. So the hour always passes by so quickly. I think it was Julia in the chat room who once said that Robin Craig Live, the hour spent watching the show, is the quickest hour of her week, and I have to agree. There's so much to talk about, but I want to thank you so much, number one, for writing this wonderful book and sharing your sister-in-law's story, and thank you for spending this hour with us. And I know a lot of people are going to pick up a copy of your book, so thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Robin, for having me. It was great to be on your show.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Oh my goodness, I'll tell you, this cancer is just lethal, but it's important. I hope that you guys will purchase the book. You might want to wait till next week to see if you win it. Don't forget to email me on robincraigdirect.com. The 20th person is going to win the book. And also, while you're on my site, click on the banner ad across the top of every page, and that will take you over to Stanley Bronstein's site, where it literally lists everything, all of the amenities and everything that you will have to experience when you are at Miraval Resort and Spa with us in November in Tucson, Arizona. All of you guys are invited to come. It's going to be a great opportunity to relax and to find some inner peace and to leave refreshed and revived and just ready to tackle the world. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you'll watch Robin Craig Live every single Tuesday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific. I love you guys to pieces. I will be hanging around in the chat room, so stick around and let's catch up. We've got people from all across the nation, and we have a chance to meet one another and share our stories, and I just appreciate you guys more than you know. So have a great, great week. Join me next week, and don't forget to send your email and to click on the link to find out more about Miraval. I love you to pieces. I'll talk to you in the chat room. Bye-bye.